From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. We are now literally just days away from the November 8th election to decide who will take over the White House in January 2017. How does the race shape up between Democrat Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump as we go into these final hours? What are the keys to victory? And how late might we be staying up on Tuesday night before a winner is declared? Or might we even go into Wednesday morning or later before we know? Republican analyst Bill Phillips and Democratic consultant Larry Woods are our guests this week on Inside Politics. They're going to give us the answers. Right, guys?
Right.
Best we can.
Well, thanks for coming on the show.
They may be wrong Tuesday night, but we'll give you answers.
Well, let's start with the questions I've kind of outlined. There's been a lot of confusion and upheaval in the race after what happened a week ago Friday when the FBI director announced there were yet more emails for his agency to look through that may go back to the original probe they have of Hillary Clinton and how she was handling her emails while she was Secretary of State. It's been a few days since that happened, but I'm not sure, Larry, the smoke has cleared. What kind of impact is this having on the race?
It's had a terrible impact on the reputation of the FBI. Win, lose, or draw for the candidates. Are we now going to expect the FBI to make announcements on every candidate the week before the election? I don't think it's had as much impact. I thought a week ago it was going to have a large impact. Today, with a week of hindsight and a week of too many polls, I don't think it's had as large an impact as I thought.
But every poll that comes out, Larry, seems to show the race getting closer and closer and more states in play.
Yes.
Now, is that because of this or something else?
I think historically presidential races tend to narrow when you get into the last week or two. I think many Democrats, and I'll include myself, thought, that's not going to happen this time because Mr. Trump's made too many mistakes, and I was wrong. It has narrowed. So is that the result of how it always historically is the pattern, or is it the result of Director of FBI Comey's statements? Maybe both.
Bill, what are your thoughts? Is it the FBI announcements that are driving this race, or were there already things narrowing it before this ever came out?
Well, the race was narrowing, but I think this time what we have are regular voters know where are debating. They're going back and forth. As we've talked about in the past, no one likes either candidate a great deal. And so one day they may be for Trump, and the next day they know Hillary's the one, and they're kind of going back and forth. And then the announcement last week did not have the impact I thought that it might have.
You thought it might have a cataclysmic
I thought it would have a bigger impact, but I think people are emailed to boredom.
Is it because people had already made up their minds or decided what they thought about Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump before this ever came out, and then it really didn't make any difference?
I think that's the case. I think the people going back and forth, and like Bill, I know a lot of people like that, are the folks who were the undecideds, the persuadables, the people that haven't been loyalists for Hillary or for Mr. Trump. That's what's happening.
Now, there are some prognostication services out there. 538, New York Times has one. Lots of the other news sites have them that are predicting the chances that Hillary Clinton will win or Donald Trump will win. There's a pretty broad range there. 538, and when we tape this, is somewhere around 65-35 in favor of Clinton winning over Trump, but the New York Times, I think, had it 91% that Clinton was going to win. What's the difference? That's a pretty broad range for being this close to the election.
I'd say 538 is the one that I would read every day between now and Tuesday. I'd say 538 usually is more accurate than any of the others. Clearly, the 91% chance is way out of the ballpark, I think, at this point. 65-35 feels about right to me.
Bill, on Tuesday night, if we're looking around for who's going to win, what do we have to look for? Let's start with Clinton first. Where early on, particularly in the East, where does she have to be winning to feel like she is going to win that night? And where do we look to see, she might be in trouble?
Well, if she keeps Pennsylvania, she's going to be in good shape. New Hampshire would give her a little safety valve there that she's going to need. And then we keep hearing that Georgia's in play. And so if that were to come through, I think it's trouble.
There's even been late word that Iowa may have tightened up again. That has been in Trump's side. Where does Trump have to look? Where do you have to look for Trump to see where he might be pulling his upset, particularly early?
Trump's got a much more difficult path than Hillary Clinton. Trump would have to carry Florida. Absolutely has to have Florida under any scenario. Probably has to have North Carolina under any scenario. probably has to have Ohio under any scenario. I don't think he's going to win 3 out of 3 there. In fact, I think Hillary will win 2 of those 3, but he's got to win all 3 to win.
And to both of you, when you're looking in the final days of a campaign, how do you know what the campaigns are thinking? Is where the candidates are going, where they're putting them and spending their time. Is that right?
Yeah, Sunday and Monday, we'll know where they're worried.
Yes. Now, the interesting part of that, though, is I've seen Mr. Trump's campaign send him to a couple of states this past week that I just looked at that and thought, there's no chance he's going to win either of those 2 states. Why are they spending the money and valuable time to send him there? So if I were a Trump supporter, I'd be a little concerned about some of the choices they're making for where they're spending
Well, Bill, in that same category on the Hillary Clinton side, both she and her vice presidential nominee went out to Arizona this week. The current polls from coming out in Arizona show it's shifting back towards Trump. Was that a mistake to send both of them out there and both basically spend a full day each on the trail in that state?
I was curious about the decision of sending her and her team out there in the first place, and I think now it's shifting, it's settling in to its traditional.
And Larry, where they move the money makes a big difference too.
Absolutely.
Because you start to see Trump has gone into some states that before, like Virginia, that he'd pretty well pulled out of.
But the wrinkle there is, I did see where Mr. Trump put a pretty sizable amount of his personal money in here this past month, but most of his paid advertising being paid for by the Republican National Committee, and of course they've got a somewhat different interest. They want to make sure their senators get reelected and their representatives get reelected, so they might put a lot of money into Virginia, and I don't think there's any chance Trump will carry Virginia.
Well, and then in that regard, because of what happened with the FBI, there had been some momentum that the Democrats thought they were going to take more than enough seats to take over the Senate. But Bill, are the down ballot candidates going to be the one that will really pay the price if the FBI probe has a major impact? Didn't that sort of blunt the momentum the Democrats thought they were getting down there in those races?
Yeah, I think that the down ballot is going to become the real story Tuesday night and Wednesday, because if the Republicans lose the Senate, that's going to be a disaster for Republicans. They'll keep the House, but if they lose the Senate, because they don't have the counterbalance. And then also, I think there's a good chance that it could be within 1 or 2 either way.
Right. I think that's very accurate, and it's difficult. For example, the Senate race in New Hampshire, the Republican incumbent woman, within the last 2 weeks, she's been up 10 points and down 9 points, all within 2 weeks. So either those polls are very inaccurate, or the voting bloc in New Hampshire is very, very volatile. And I think it's a little of both.
Democrat Larry Woods is with us talking about presidential politics, along with Bill Phillips on the Republican side. Back to continue our conversation with the election just days away. Come back after these messages.